obviate, completely eliminate the need for oil, gas, coal, nuclear energy, pollution, or poverty in the world. This is not an urban myth. This is the fact, and so we're living in a world that is a faint shadow of what it can be. And the only reason these petro-Nazis have been able to get away with this is because a lot of good people haven't joined together in one voice and said, enough. We want these technologies out there, and we're going to support these sorts of wonderful scientists like the Orion Project is now working with to get them the adequate funding, to get together a laboratory for them, but also to provide adequate security and protection for them. And so we're relying on you guys to help us. We cannot, certainly I by myself cannot do this, nor can Dr. Loder. But if we all combine our resources and our efforts together, we can. And it's time for us to do it, because really the future of this planet, our ability to move out of this crisis, this sort of existential crisis of global poverty and terrorism and haves and have-nots and biosphere degradation and resource depletion and global warming and all these things. These things aren't going to be solved by anything that the current scientists and governments are proposing. In fact, one of the most famous climate change scientists, whose name eludes me right now, recently said that all the things that are being proposed in terms of clean coal and biofuels and windmills and solar panels are way too little, too late to be of any great assistance. And that is true. It's people don't want to hear that because everyone wants to think that. And yet, we know that these solutions have existed for decades, and that our team, here we are with a few $1,000s trying to support to do this, when the Department of Energy has spent billions on hot fusion, has spent billions on, and now they're proposing spending somewhere between $15 and $30 billion of our tax dollars on, quote, clean coal, which is a euphemism. There is no such thing as clean coal. Even if you can burn it cleanly, the way they're mining it is by doing what's called mountaintop removal, MTR, where they blow up the entire mountain and dump all the excess into the valleys and streams, and they're destroying all of Appalachia doing this, and all as well as out west. And that's where we're getting the coal. So even if you burn it cleanly, which has not been at all proven to be possible, to extract the darn stuff out of the earth is an environmental holocaust. And we've been doing this since the 1800s, going into the earth and digging out this nasty black stuff and burning it. Since the early 1900s, through the breakthroughs of people like Nikola Tesla and others, we've had these other technologies where we wouldn't have needed to burn any of it. So, this kind of madness is something that has got to change, and this is the change that we really can believe in, and that we need to demand that our government help assist us in doing so. But I'm not holding my breath with the government. I think we need to approach them. Ultimately, I think we need to rely on ourselves. We need to say how many people are on the World Puja Network mailing list and the Orion Project. It's got to be in the 100,000 range, because we have 30 or 40,000 on our list. If we can get those people to understand how important this is and make a modest contribution, enough people, it will become a river of support, and we'll be able to do this on our own. But it's not going to be possible to do with just a few $1,000s. Ultimately, we're going to need a lot more support than that, and I hope you all will help us. And I do think it's important that the people weigh in with their government and let them know that these kinds of criminal activities are being perpetrated by a shadowy group that need to be investigated and reined in, and just basically told, you're not going to do this anymore.
Right. It brings to mind, I was speaking with Ken Rasmussen about, a couple years ago. And he lives out in California, and he was an inventor, tinkerer, if you will, more than that, but working with breaking apart water into hydrogen and oxygen, Brown's gas, in order to, but doing it in a very, very efficient way with some very, very high technology. His assistant, and this has been on the web in his description, so I'm not spilling any beans here, but his assistant who worked at I believe it was a Navy base on the California coast. was actually stopped on the base in a sort of a quiet, private area of the base, and forced out of his car and a gun put to his head and said, "You shall not work on this anymore." Now that was on the base, but nobody on the base in the regular area of the base knew anything about who these people were. So whoever they were able to get onto a Navy base and threaten this guy and then basically disappear, so that the normal chain of command that one would normally check in with was unaware of them.
Correct.
So we're talking about the integration, or that in every barrel there's a rotten apple.
Right, and I think that this is one of the things I've said for years, is that this clandestine group have tentacles in every agency and many corporations, and they tend to function with an all-access pass. I'm reminded by the story that when President Jimmy Carter was pushing on this issue, and he had a so-called UFO sighting, a sighting of one of these strange objects when he was governor of Georgia, and I actually have his report. And President Carter, when he became president, the first thing he asked Papa Bush was, "What are these things, and what do you know about it?" And Papa Bush didn't deny knowing about it. He said, "I'm not going to tell you," because Papa Bush was the outgoing CIA director at the time, as all of you know. This is W's father, of course, Bush 41. And President Carter was stunned, and so he was told, "Go get this information from the Congressional Research Service or some other place," and just kind of was brushed off, even though he was the incoming president of the United States. So Carter ordered, through the Stanford Research Institute, a White House study on all of this, including, I'm sure, the energy aspects of it, because he was a nuclear engineer. I mean, President Carter is a very, very smart man. And ultimately, there were a couple goons with all-access passes made its way all the way into the Oval Office and went up to President Carter and said, "Sir, if you would like to complete your first term in office, you will keep your mouth shut about this matter," and threaten the President of the United States. This I know for a fact from people who are involved. Now, this is the kind of, what kind of criminal group does this? Well, it's the group we've been describing for years, and if you go to our websites, you'll get a pretty good picture of it. But it only has the power it has because it operates nefariously in the dark. And we've been able to get this far because we disclosed so much information that they can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. And we have millions of people who follow what we're doing, and so it's very, very difficult. Now, what is more vulnerable is when we have a team of people, a small team of only 4 people, working on a device that would deep six the need for oil and gas and coal and basically change that whole dynamic, who are working on this, and we need to be sure that we can do adequate protection, but also the instant that this device becomes operational, we're going to have to stand up and put together a very, very robust team to transport it, to get it tested, to get it replicated, and to get it secured, and to get it in front of the right people so that we can then move it forward down the pathway of creating a technology that can make it out to every man, woman, and child on the planet. This is a huge undertaking, and I keep saying we cannot do this by ourselves. We can do it with enough thousands of people supporting it, not only financially, but also with their voices being heard, because it makes it very difficult for these groups, these goons, to behave the way they do when there's a big billion-watt spotlight on them. What I found from doing disclosureproject.org is that by having a lot of people, and ultimately about 1 billion people saw the National Press Club event that we did in 2001, almost 8 years ago, what that did was that it made it very, very difficult for this group to do anything too overt. Now, we've had surveillance, but we've had no direct injuries or anything like that. And I think that's because of you, the people out there, knowing about it. And this is why it's very important for you to network this story to people you know who are concerned about the environment and concerned about Gaia and concerned about humanity's future. And that by networking this to everyone in your email list, and everyone on your Facebook page, and everyone in your, Twitter page, or wherever it is, that what happens is that it builds